Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Supporting Equity in Advanced Placement webinar series. Today is the first webinar in a series of 3 webinars, all focused on supporting equity in advanced placement. Today's session is going to be focused specifically on providing an overview of our AP success tools. My name is Carolina Buitrago. I am Director of Learning and Impact at Mass Insight Education and Research, and I am very excited to have you all joining us and going over some of these exciting tools that will help you support equity in AP in your districts. To get us started, I'm going to walk us through our learning goals for today. For this session, we would like, at the end of this session, what we like to be true is for you all to have an understanding of some of the opportunity gaps in advanced placement nationwide. We're also going to be exploring equity in AP, providing a working definition of equity in advanced placement, and ways to support it using the Mass Insights AP success tools. And lastly, we are going to provide some information about Mass Insights AP Equity Support Services and upcoming webinars. So let's get started. Before we do so, I just wanted to communicate that we have an exciting offer for you all. Mass Insight not only does work in terms of advancing advanced placement equity, but we also do work around the country on school improvement overall. We have diagnostics, we have strategic planning support, we have implementation support, progress monitoring, equity audits, executive coaching, and many other services in our larger suite of services. So we are offering a 1-hour pro bono consulting opportunity for system leaders. So for those of you interested in making the most of this academic year, please feel free to reach out to us at partner@massinsight.org and schedule your free consultation hour with us and explore all the possibilities for supporting your achieving of your student outcomes and your organizational goals. All right. First, let's examine some opportunity gaps in advanced placement nationwide. Here I am actually inviting us to think of the experience that students have, advanced placement students have during high school in terms of phases. And these phases actually can operate as a funnel. And this is an idea that emerged from a group of researchers at the Center for American Progress. And what they are suggesting for us to think about is for the narrowing of the student experience and the success as the students navigate the advanced placement system. So the likelihood of a school offering the advanced placement coursework is the first level of that funnel. And that likelihood is greater than the likelihood of students being identified, invited to enroll, and actually enrolling in AP programs. And further down the funnel, the likelihood of students engaging in taking the AP exam is even narrower. And finally, the likelihood of students passing the AP exam is even narrower. So this is really an overview and an illustration of how, for all the students in AP, the opportunity gets narrower and narrower as we get to the AP exam. But what happens when we disaggregate this in terms of racial and ethnic groups? So these same researchers at the Center for American Progress estimated that for every 1,000 students, high school students, who enroll in AP coursework, only 100, for every 1,000 students who are in high school, only 174 actually enroll in AP coursework. Out of those, 130 take the exam, and only 75 end up passing the exam. So you clearly see here the funnel effect. When we look and examine at the racial disaggregation of these findings, we see clearly that some of the disparities surface. So for every 1,000 students who actually enroll in AP course, only 21 Black students end up passing the AP test. Only 51 Hispanic students pass the test, and only 7 American Indian or Alaska Native students end up passing the test. So the funnel gets even narrower when we disaggregate these by ethnic groups. Researchers at the Urban Institute illustrate this also in terms of students with disabilities and English language learners. So what we can see here in this diagram is that of the students who actually take at least one AP exam, only 54%, 54.7% are students with disabilities, and only 60.7% are English language learners. In contrast with the overall number of students who take at least one AP exam, which is 74.5%. So we clearly are seeing the disproportionalities not only by ethnic and racial groups, but also in terms of students with disabilities and English language learners. So what do we do then with this reality of inequities in advanced placement? So we do think that the first step is to really understand what equity would look like in AP. And our working definition of equity in AP is as follows. We believe that equity in AP is about expanding and supporting opportunities for marginalized students to participate and succeed in AP, which means that we define equity in AP as an equation of access plus success equaling equity. Access. By access, we mean that the AP classes should reflect the composition of those classes, the ethnic and economic diversity of the school at large, and which means consequently that there needs to be intentional work about eliminating barriers to access and enroll in AP. But we also know that accessing coursework is not enough. We do know that in order to ensure equity in AP, we also need to support very intentionally the students that are who are enrolled in AP. That means that we need to ensure that the students who enroll experience excellence in challenging high school education, that students actually make it to the finish line by taking the AP exam, and that the students end up passing the AP exam. So this is our suggested working definition of equity in AP. It really is access plus success, thinking of both in parallel. How then do we go about supporting equity in advanced placement? I'm going to share with you an experience that we have had at Mass Inside. We have had decades of work working on supporting school districts and schools in developing strategies and to advance AP outcomes. And what we have observed is that the schools that are the most successful in increasing AP participation and success, the performance of students in those AP classrooms, are really the ones that have a dedicated group of leaders championing improvement efforts for their AP programs. So these are schools that have particularly dedicated capacity to create the infrastructure for successful AP programs, to support students and their families, and to support teachers and their instructional practices. As I mentioned, we have done this work, particularly within the New England region, for several decades by now. And I wanted to highlight one particular experience that we had by forming the AP Action Community. In the fall of 2020, Mass Insight was awarded with funds from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to form a network for school improvement focused on advanced placement. So what we did was to bring together 6 high schools, 4 from Massachusetts and 2 from Connecticut. And we worked for 18 months with teams from each participating high school. Those teams were combined administrators, AP teachers, non-AP teachers, counselors, and AP coordinators. And the idea was to work very intentionally on addressing the disproportionalities in AP, particularly for historically marginalized students in their high schools. And we did that so that we could increase participation and success, particularly for Black, Latino, and low-income students in those schools. How did we do that? We actually, along with the teams, tested systematically improvement ideas throughout the 18 months of our work together and examine if the idea would work and yield promising results, or if the idea would not work and hence it would need to be discarded in order to avoid a waste of capacity and resources in something that wasn't yielding promising results. So that's what we did with the school teams. We tested several ideas, many of which are actually comprised in the tools that I'm going to be sharing with you today. But just to give you an example, some of our school teams that worked with us on the AP Action community helped the students set up SMART goals, SMART academic goals at the beginning of the year, and checked in on the progress of those SMART goals throughout the year. Some other school teams created a peer ambassador program in order to have upperclassmen encourage lowerclassmen to enroll in AP and to talk about their experience in AP and to increase the sense of belongingness in AP classes. Some other school teams tested, for example, protocols to decrease and to manage the stress that comes on the months preparing for the AP exam. After 18 months of testing systematically some of these change ideas, we actually reached tremendous impact. On the one hand, by the spring of 2022, as compared to the fall of 2020, AP participation increased significantly among Black and Latino students and low-income students in the participating schools. And also the AP success defined as students obtaining a passing score of 3 or above in the AP exam increased by 90% among Black students in the participating schools. This impact was not only limited to student outcomes, the capacity of teachers and faculty to actually engage in intentional improvement efforts and test ideas systematically and collect data and analyze the data and understand whether what they were doing was an improvement and how to scale it up across the school was also a reported outcome by the participating teachers and administrators in this effort. An additional outcome of this work of the AP Action community has been the AP success tools that I will be providing an overview of today. These AP success tools really emanated from the work that we did with these school teams, and by bringing together researchers, members of our school teams, and our own AP team at Mass Insight and our own staff. We gathered together and we designed a toolkit to put at the service of districts, state agencies, school buildings, and other intermediary organizations who are supporting equity efforts in AP. And so those groups together, in thinking along with Mass Insight, landed on the development of 3 AP success tools that I'm going to be describing shortly. And by the way, if any questions arise about any of the things that I have shared or that I'm about to share, we are going to feel free to input them into the chat box, and we'll also have some allocated minutes to discuss some of your questions at the end of the session. So the AP success tools are designed for educators by educators. As I mentioned, some of the school teams that we worked with provided incredible input and experience building these tools. we have the AP Equity Self-Assessment, which is a tool that primarily tends to the infrastructure behind the AP program that is whether conducive or not to equity. So it really looks at the AP program from a structural perspective. And we will break this down in a few minutes. The other two tools that we developed are the classroom strategies for AP success and the AP on track framework. Both of these tools are actually focused more on classroom instruction and how to support teachers to support students in persisting and finishing AP classes successfully. So let's break these tools down into specifics. This is the QR code for you to access these AP tools in our website. So first, we're going to focus on the tool that helps districts and schools develop the infrastructure for AP participation and success. So this is the AP Equity Self-Assessment. This self-assessment is actually an online survey, and it assesses the extent to which there are best practices in place around 5 key elements of the structure of a program that if they are in place, those best practices, it is very likely that the program is supporting students to succeed in AP. Those elements, those structural elements of success are related to the way the school and the district manages staff, time and scheduling, money and all the budgetary decisions, the program characteristics, and the policies around AP. So for each of these structural conditions, in the online survey, users respond to survey items, and after completing the full survey, the platform in which this survey is built generates a customized and an automized findings report. And the findings report identifies areas of strength, areas of opportunity, and recommendations that are actionable. The report usually serves as the basis for developing an action plan. Some of the examples of these structural elements that this online survey assesses are here. For more information and to go deeper into this tool, we invite you to attend our upcoming webinar on mid-November that is going to focus on this tool specifically. For example, this tool will assess whether you have an AP open enrollment policy, whether and to what extent you have supports for your counselors, or whether there is a common teaching planning time for AP teachers. These are just a few examples of the elements that this survey assesses. And as I mentioned, the platform yields an automized and customized report, which yields specific AP equity scores, an overall score, and scores for each dimension that is measured. We use this with our partners to support the development of action plans that incorporate improvements at the structural level for the AP programs in the schools and districts. Now onto the next two tools. As I mentioned earlier, the classroom strategies for AP success and the AP on track framework are the tools that were designed with the students' needs in mind and identify specific supports that the students can get in the context of the classroom and in the context of the school at large, and can support teachers' instructional practices in the classroom. So let's start with the classroom strategies for AP success. Before we get into details about these classroom strategies for AP success, it is important to go over a very basic construct, a concept that is the through line of all of these AP success tools, which is the construct of productive persistence, which means the set of skills, habits of mind, and mindsets that are conducive to success. in any academic endeavor for any student. The productive persistence can be defined as the belief that one can learn even if the content is difficult, plus a strong sense of connection with peers, teachers, and the content itself, plus a sense that the learning material is valuable, plus having positive mindsets towards the learning that is at stake, and the skills and habits that allow a student to develop the know-how necessary to succeed. This is what we are calling productive persistence. So the classroom strategies for school success, for AP success, and the AP on track framework are both based on this concept. So the question is, how do we improve instruction so that all students can develop productive persistence while learning the AP content? So we decided to organize a whole curation, a curated list of AP classroom strategies by around 5 different domains that tackle the concept of productive persistence: the students' mindsets, students' voice and agency, classroom community and culture, AP skill building, and feedback and grading practices. So the classroom strategies for AP success really is a list that is on our website of over 100 concrete classroom strategies organized under those 5 domains that can be implemented in the classroom right away to support productive persistence with your students. Let me show you how this looks online. So if you go to our website, you go to the AP Success Tools tab, you find the AP classroom strategies, the classroom strategies for AP success. And what you find is a listing with a short description of what the strategies are about, organized under the 5 domains that you can filter through. Again, this is a curation of over 100 strategies that you will find there. Once you click on either one of those strategies, the strategy is described in detail with a purpose, an outcome, specific action steps, related materials, and related citations, and additional related strategies. So it's a very detailed description of each strategy so that the teacher can really go ahead and implement it with not additional support. Now, let's talk about the advanced placement on track framework, which is related to the AP, the classroom strategies for AP success. The AP on track framework is really an invitation for all educators to have a shift in their thinking about understanding students' performance from a deficit-based paradigm to an asset-based. So instead of thinking about students' performance in AP as the students having the full onus on their performance, they're not motivated, they don't complete assignments, they want to drop out, they don't have the skills to succeed, they don't come ready to endure the rigor of AP. The AP on track framework is a tool that makes us ask the question of the experiences that we are providing to students in our schools and in our classrooms to succeed. Are those experiences, are those environments that we're providing, are the things that we're doing in the classrooms and in our schools, things that are supporting the students' development of productive persistence? What are our environments like, and how can we make those environments better and more intentional so that the students can develop productive persistence? So when we had our design team with some of the fellow educators that were part of our AP Action community and the researchers from Johns Hopkins, Everyone Graduate Center, and our own AP team, And we gather all of these folks and ask them, what are the make it or break it points during the school year for AP students where we need to be extra intentional about the experiences that we provide to them so that they can get to the finish line and succeed in AP. So in working with this team, we all identified 4 critical periods. Strong start at the very beginning of the academic year, the keeping up, where all the competing priorities kick in and things get a little challenging in terms of time management by November, December. Then the midterm reset, when students come back from the holiday break and they need to reorient themselves into the class and the course. And finally, the exam prep time as the AP exam approaches. So what the AP On Track framework does is organize a set of experiences that teachers and everyone in the school can provide to students at each critical period during the school year for the 5 domains that we had defined earlier. So this is how it looks like on our website. So once again, you click AP Success Tools, you find the tab for the AP On Track framework, and then you find the critical periods that we have identified. And in each critical period, we have a definition of the period and identified experiences that teachers can provide to students for them to succeed. The yellow highlighted experiences were actually experiences provided by students when we asked them what helped them be successful in AP. When you click on one of the experiences, either one of the experiences comprised in this AP On Track framework, you will actually find suggested strategies to actualize that experience in the classroom. Those are the strategies that you find in the curated list in the AP, in the classroom strategies for AP success. Again, if you want to learn more in depth about the AP On Track framework, we invite you to attend the 3rd webinar in this series, which is going to be focused exclusively on this tool. We've been working with these tools, with the support of these tools, with different partners throughout the country. And we want to make you aware that Mass Insight offers these tools free of cost on our website, but we also have built up a suite of services around the usage of these tools. So we can support schools and districts by providing guided support in completing the AP Equity Self-Assessment. And with the findings in place, we would then provide support in strategic planning. We would support districts and schools develop an AP Equity Action Plan based on the findings from the AP Equity Self-Assessment. And we would also provide support to schools and districts to develop an AP On Track plan so that throughout the year there can be intentionality from teachers and from others who support students for students to support to develop productive persistence. So we can support strategic planning for an AP Equity Action Plan, or we can support strategic planning for developing an AP On Track plan, or for both. Again, we can look at the structural aspects of the program and support action development plan for that, or we can look at the instructional aspect of the program and develop an action plan for that, or we can do both. And lastly, we can also then, once we have plans in place, we can support implementation and the progress monitoring of the plans developed. So this is work we do with schools and school districts who are interested in increasing their efforts to reach equity in AP. And when we do this kind of supports, you can actually choose your entry point. You can go the instructional route, or you can go the structural route, or you can do both in parallel. And let this be then a moment to remind you of our pro bono 1 hour consultation time that we're offering. And this would be a great opportunity if you're interested in using these tools to support your equity efforts in AP to advance the success opportunities for your students in rigorous coursework during their high school years. Feel free to contact us at partner@massinsight.org and schedule your free consultation hour. We also want to remind you that this is part of a webinar series. Today was our first session. Our upcoming webinars are going to be on November 13th. And on that one, we will focus on the AP equity assessment. And on November 19th, we will focus on the AP on-track framework. So now I am going, if anyone has any question, we can take a few minutes and address your questions.